again, welcome to Warren County. We're really excited to have this here. Appreciate the Highlands Coalition and this conference, again, having this here in Warren County. It's very special to us. And thank you to President Murphy. No pressure. I think there's, we're going to have to come up with something big today after those last two events he was talking about. But if we can get right into it, if we want to quickly just do some quick, brief introductions. First, we'll start with Tom with the Skylands Visitor Magazine.
I'm Tom Drake, publisher of the Skylands Visitor Magazine, which we began in 1990, which is quite a ways back, covers some ground. It started as a partnership with the Skylands Tourism Council, which is no longer with us, but we found a lot to write about, and we've published over 800 stories about things to do and places to see and great projects in the Skylands region.
All right, Dorothy?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me. I'm Dorothy with the Historic Trust. We're the primary funders for historic preservation in New Jersey, and we do planning and heritage tourism and capital. Just real quick, our funding comes off the corporate business tax dedication, which some of you might remember also funds green acres and farmland preservation. We've been struggling with heritage tourism for over a decade, and we do fund initiatives that promote the historic sites, and we have money. So I just want you all to know that, because we run a grant program. So thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to today.
And Jeff.
Whenever you say I have money, that's a long line of people that are going to be standing.
We do. It's a new thing for us.
Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Jeff Vasser. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Division of Travel and Tourism. We do all of the advertising and promotion and PR for the state of New Jersey. I'm from the Atlantic City area, and the drive up here, reinforces the diversity of New Jersey as far as a tourism destination. You go through all kinds of different opportunities for people to visit and enjoy and shop and spend their money, and it's just great to be here and to see probably the most beautiful part of the state. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you all. And thank Jeff when you leave today, because I don't know if you've seen the Tourism New Jersey commercials. There is a clear shot of the Delaware Water Gap. I don't know if you've noticed that. So we're definitely getting our representation. So I guess to kick it off with a first kind of question, Jeff, I'll start with you. We've heard today Northwest New Jersey, Skylands, Highlands. Regardless of what we call it, what would you say are some common themes between this area, and kind of, what is an identifiable real characteristic of this region?
From our point of view, we look at this area as outdoors and healthful and wellness, which coincidentally are right now probably the biggest trends in tourism. And that is, people, after the pandemic, we're looking for areas when they travel, all of the pent-up demand for people to get away, of the past 2 years. They wanted to go somewhere where they felt safe. This area is certainly, hits that mark, because a lot of your attractions are outdoors. The same with the shore. The shore did extremely well these past 2 summers because of that. Also, wellness. People are looking to be outdoors. They're looking to get into hiking and biking and outdoor yoga and things like that. And nobody offers that more than this part of the state. So what we're trying to do, and this, you'll hear this from the secretary, when she comes for lunch today, that her mission and her goal was to pivot from being so shore-centric in our advertising and focus on areas like this, as well as the arts and the culture and the culinary, the wineries and the breweries. And again, this part of the state is rich in those assets that we're looking to focus on.
Great, thank you. Dorothy, do you have anything to add on that? I think we talked about region versus county, earlier, how sometimes there's that little bit of tension between that.
Well, and the visitors don't see it that way. I was driving up here, I didn't know whether I was in Morris County or Warren County, unless somebody sends you a sign or something. But basically, with heritage tourism, we're trying to get our historic sites to see themselves as part of a larger picture. When people visit historic sites, they often visit other types of resources. They go hiking, they go go fishing, kayaking, and they also shop in small towns. Recreational shopping is a real big thing for economic development when it comes to heritage tourism. So we're trying to get sites to see themselves as part of a larger piece and try to talk to their neighbors and to other assets. And when they think about what type of visitors are they going to try and attract to their sites, they should see how to market to a broader range. It's not just the casual person who drops in on a historic site. There are people that are looking at us from other places saying, I want a type of experience. I was excited to see how you organized visiting sites today, and that you are looking at combining different types of sites, because that's exactly what we're trying to get people to realize, is that they're linkages, they're part of a linkage.
No, that's great. Yeah, thank you. And Tom, I know you've obviously the Skylands magazine. So from your point of view, how would you say, answer that question?
Well, as I said, we started this as a kind of a one-off with the Tourism Council, and I never imagined I'd be doing this 30 years later. Mm-hmm. One of the things that grabbed me was 1992, and 2 years into this. Wilma Fry, who's well known in the Highlands Coalition and in the conservation circles of New Jersey, wrote a little article about a book by Allison Mitchell called Treasures and Risk, which was the first time I grew up, Treasures Without Risk, I'm sorry. I grew up in New Jersey, but I was never aware of the Highlands as a place. And this book was the first book that I've seen that really defined the Highlands as one place. So 30 years into this, I've discovered an amazing treasure chest of heritage trails, natural trails, all those things that make a place, give a place identity. Let me just go through some of the people, many of which are no longer here, that created some of those places. Of course, starting with the Washington Association and the Morristown National Historic Park, Helen Fenske with the Great Swamp, which is the first national wildlife wilderness area. The Morristown Historic Park is the first National Historical Park. Len Frank, creating the Paulinskill Trail, Len Frank and the Sierra Club. Jim Lee, of course, uncovering the Morris Canal, and all the great work by Joe McKasick, Brian Morell, and other people in the Canal Society. Cliff Seckel, who uncovered the Pluckerman Cantonment in Bedminster, pretty much single-handedly, just kind of bushwhacking up a mountain. Captain Bill McKelvey, who has put years and vast amounts of his own treasure into trying to create a New Jersey Transportation Museum. We've been through 3 rounds of that. We still don't have one. Dick and Bob Houck at the Sterling Hill Mine, the creation of a Mines, Metal, and Men Trail throughout the state. Dear to my heart, Dan and Pam Bacon at the Lakota Wolf Preserve. Percy Leach at Waterloo Village. I could go on. There's a lot of people like that who dedicated their heart and souls to creating places for just the sake of having them. So why tourism? That's why, because there's passion, and we see these things created. These are the things that we should hold on to.
Oh, great. Anyone else, live ball, why tourism? Like, there's, I think, a lot of residents in the audience today as far as visitors, so we have 2 different reasons of why people are probably here. But why should this region, whatever you call it, embrace tourism?
Well, I think people need to understand that, tourism right now is the 6th largest industry in New Jersey by employment. Indirect and direct employment, there's about 440,000 people that work in the tourism industry. It generates, in 2019 at our peak, $46 billion was spent by visitors coming into our state. So that's a lot of economic impact. And what we like to point out to people is that for every household, tourism provides $1,400 in state and local taxes. So if there was no tourism, every household would have to spend an extra $1,400 in their state and local taxes each year. So there's, certainly some economic impact, to say nothing of pride and, and the enjoyment of traveling and meeting other people and, enjoying what New Jersey has to offer.
Oh, great, definitely.
So those numbers that Jeff just mentioned, I just wanted to say our Heritage Tourism Economic Impact Statement says that we're about 7 to 8% of the bigger number of heritage tourism. And that is, I think, really low when you compare that to other states. So we have a ways to go if we're going to try and develop our history as a reason that people would come to the state to visit it. Aside from, just to add to what Jeff was talking about, our studies have shown us that people who visit historic sites and other cultural attractions typically spend more money when they're visiting. They stay longer in hotels, they go to restaurants, they do shopping, and so their visits are tending to bring a lot more to your coffers than, say, an average visitor that might go to the Jersey Shore. I'm sorry, I just trashed the Jersey Shore, but I didn't really. It definitely tends to be a bigger picture of economic development. And of course, there's also the pride part of this. Many residents, until something's promoted, don't even realize what they have in their own backyard. And so, again, thank you all for the work that you guys do, because you guys recognize the significance of what you have in your own backyard.
That's a great point, and it's funny. Warren County, we use our tourism as Explore Warren. We don't say Visit Warren, because to your exact point, residents of Warren County, we want them to go from Hackettstown to Phillipsburg and everywhere in between. So, excellent point. Tom, what would you say, along this kind of theme? What can we be doing, whether it's at an individual level, at a bid level, at a town level, county level? What can we be doing to make tourism a viable, economy here?
Well, if you're talking about marketing, that's one question. Marketing in our part of the state was originally done on a regional basis. That kind of fell apart into five separate county enterprises, which they're all doing very well, but there's no cohesion. There's 5 different slogans. As I said, as Dorothy said, you don't know what county you're in. So a regional effort is always important. The Highlands Coalition has taken on a good chunk of that now. Whether there should be a specific marketing arm for that is a question to consider. That's one thing I think we can be doing. But the growth of our heritage sites has just been enormous. And the New Jersey Historic Commission has been a great benefit to all of them. I'm involved with one in Knowlton Township at the Ramseysburg Homestead. And without the Historic Commission, we'd be nothing. We'd be overgrown with vines. So it's an educational process. The value of tourism here is education. We have to educate ourselves to what we really have, where we really live, and the place that we have.
Yeah, Dorothy.
Just to follow up on that as well, our sites in New Jersey aren't really visitor ready. We've done studies with our sites to see, are they open regular hours? Do they have places for people to park? Is there a place for a bus to drop off a school group? Do they have bathrooms? Do they have a place for people to assemble? And back maybe a decade ago, only about 5% of our sites actually could check all the boxes and say they were visitor ready. We started a website called Journey Through Jersey. Again, you have to be visitor ready in order to be on that website, so I'd encourage everybody to take a look at that. But one of the things the Trust did start funding because of this was a category called visitor amenity. And so in addition to just funding the restoration of historic sites, we're also, with a good application, are taking a look at some of the things a site might tell us that they need in order to provide a better visitor experience. So that might be that they need handicap parking, or they might need a handicap bathroom, or they might need a handicap accessible trail to get them through a garden area, something like that. So we're not just funding the historic site, we're taking a look at the bigger picture of what visitors need. And I think for those of you that maybe have traveled to National Park Service sites or have gone out of state, these are things that are just regular and routine at other historic sites. And so we're trying to get our sites to think of themselves in that way too. And that also takes the pressure off local communities if you've planned for those visitors to come to your site.
That's a great point. And I guess, not to be negative here, but I think we're here to solve problems today. And Jeff, I'll ask this to you first. What are some other challenges for tourism in this region? What are some things that you see as glaring possible objections or concerns with tourism in our region of the state?
Well, I don't want to call them objections so much as the limiting factors, I think, in this area are, and this is, talking to some of the tourism officials in the area, and that is the lack of accommodations. So, I mean, if you want people to stay longer, you're going to need more hotel rooms and things like that. I think the question that the people of this region need to ask themselves is, do we want that? And, if you do, we talk to the planning officials and you find places to do this. Because the way, tourism is going to work for everybody and to make it easier is to get people to stay longer. Because if you get people that are staying longer, that's less impact on the in and out and the driving, coming in and turning over new people every day, and people can stay in hotels for 2 or 3 nights as opposed to just coming in for the day and turning around, going out, and then just replacing them with another group of people. So to the point that Dorothy made earlier, what we're trying to do is to tie in things like heritage sites with restaurants and shopping, and giving people reasons and opportunities to stay in one place longer, which drives more economic impact for everybody, and then helps get the message out. The fact that you're a little while away from Newark Airport, for instance, certainly is, people have to be drawn out here. They have to know what's here. But again, to the point I made before, right now what this area has to offer is what is top of mind for people, and that is outdoor, it is well-being, it is healthful, and those are the attractions that are going to draw people here. So as Tom said, it's a marketing issue, and we shouldn't do 5 different counties doing different things with different messaging. We should be pulling them together. And I say that, but on the other hand, conversely, I'm trying to tear down some of those walls of, different regions and what we call them. And what we're trying to do, for instance, with itineraries is just do a north and a south, and someone can argue that, well, you should have a central, but, I'm not going to get into that argument at this conference. So, but we'll do a wine trail, we'll do an ale trail, we just came out with a Black Heritage trail, and we're going to be doing heritage things. So there's a lot of opportunities to kind of cross over and to give people a reason that may be starting, in Newark and working their way west.
That's a great point. I think we talked earlier, too, about how people are going to the Poconos. So they're going past us. It's just how do we get them to stop, right? Dorothy or Tom, anything else you want to add to this this thread of other challenges potentially in our area?
So the one thing I was just going to say to everybody after my 2-hour drive up here this morning is, as the preservationist in me was sort of like, what do they want tourism up here for? This is pretty. Let's leave it alone. This is the part of New Jersey no one knows about. But having said that, I think one of your challenges is transportation. The whole build it and they will come thing, that's not how tourism happens typically. And so I think that's where you really need to be talking to everybody. Residents have to have buy-in if you want to have visitors and create a good visitor experience. And so I think you have to be very careful about what type of tourism you're building, and how you're going to see the influx. Is it seasonal tourism? Is it year-round? Is it, at certain places geographically? Because you can get overrun. I know there are other places in the country where this is a big topic where they talk about there's too many people here, what do we do? So in order not to have that happen, because you can destroy a resource just as quickly by having too much going on, you really need to plan for it. It's like anything else. You got to plan for it.
That's great. Tom?
Those are great points. However, I think we have to learn by experience. We've been after this for 30 years, and really, we're in the same situation. And rather than I think we have to look for other solutions. We live in a very, very wealthy area very high property values, where it's hard, and we can't really base a huge tourism economy on service jobs because they're way below the pay grade of most people. In the Skylands, our per capita income is $50,000. That's per capita. Each household mean household income is over $100,000. So we're not in the situation of how the Poconos developed as an economic initiative. Again, the economics of it are extremely valid, but we've been trying to sell that for 30 years, probably more than before me, 50 years. So I don't know how we're going to sell it now on that basis. So we have to think of very creatively about how we can go about doing things. The Canal Society is an exemplary example about how to do things. Just hard work, trail across, obviously a historic trail, but a greenway now that's being created across the state. But that's taken years and years and years and thousands of man hours to create. That's what it's going to take.
Great point. So we have, these three, great resources here, and we thought I think we have some time here, if we open it up to questions from the audience, if anyone has any specific questions or thoughts or comments on your mind. Again, two great state partners here, and then Tom with his wealth of experience in the magazine. So does anyone have any questions that they'd like to pose to the panel while we have them here? Not that I can see anybody.
I don't know how actors do
Yeah,
this. I
right,
really don't.
exactly. Oh, very good. Right there, you can yell it out.
That's a good point.
Well, I don't know if we have any travel agencies left on Earth, but but it's a good point that one of our initiatives should be working on the supply side, how to create vendors, how to create little tour operators, how to create things like the Canal Society, how to boost that kind of thing. I don't think we're going to get a huge water park. I don't think we want a big water park. I don't think we want Disney to take over Waterloo, which almost happened, by the way. But I don't think we want Walt Disney and Waterloo Village. But we want visitation at Waterloo Village. We need that kind of thing that has our own brand. I mean, really our own brand. There's no place like Northwestern New Jersey.
I'll add that your destination marketing organizations in the various counties up here are working hard to work with tour operators. I'll give you an example. We go as a state to the American Bus Association convention every year, and the destination marketing organizations all come with us, and those that are based here come as well. And what we're doing at these conferences are working with and meeting with tour operators that come primarily by motor coach, and basically selling them on our area, and working with the hotels in our areas, and working with the attractions to put together packages that would be attractive to a motor coach tour. And what they're doing is they're starting in Ohio, for instance, and they're working their way to New York City, and they have various stops along the way. And what our partners are doing are working with these motor coach operators and saying, listen, you want to stop here because we have this, this, and this to offer. And these tour groups, they love Americana. They love to see what small town America has to offer, and you have some beautiful communities here, and that's very attractive to these motor coach operators. Another one, we go to a group called IPW, which is where international tour operators come. And again, the folks from this area are a big part of the conference with us, and what we do is talk to international tour operators and international travel media. And the travel media, they go back into their home markets and they talk about, hey, listen, New Jersey isn't just a suburb of New York City. This is what we have to offer. And what we're trying to do is to, drive the attention and to drive these tour operators and saying, listen, fine, you want to spend 3 or 4 days in New York City, and, people don't necessarily agree with me on this, but I think we should use New York City as our hook for the international visitor, because it is the #1 gateway destination in America. And to ignore it and pretend it isn't there, I think works to our detriment. So if you want to spend 3 or 4 days in New York City, knock yourself out. But then come out here and save on, on shopping, save on the taxes that you would have to pay in New York City, and you get them excited about the outdoor experiences and the farms and the farm-to-table restaurants, and that gets them excited. And if that doesn't work, we tell them that we pump your gas for you too.
One thing we did back in the Tourism Council days is we had a fam tour. Governor Florio and his wife got in a bus and came up here and spent 5 days making a loop all the way from Clinton, Flemington, all the way up to Vernon, to Morristown. It generated an enormous amount of publicity. I don't know if something like that is possible these days. I don't know what publicity you would get, since there's no newspapers left. But those fam tours with public people like that, when they're willing to do it, do generate a lot of attention.
Great. Anyone else have any? Right, we'll go right here.
So Dorothy, you mentioned that you have some funding very attractive. Can you talk a little bit about an example of how a business might be able to utilize the funding that you have? I know traditionally funding from that is for facades of historic preservations and buildings and things like that, but perhaps you could give some examples of how maybe some businesses have been able to access some of that funding for their establishment.
So we don't fund businesses, we fund nonprofit organizations. And okay, all right. So nonprofit organizations, entities of government, we fund. We have a whole category of heritage tourism, and we will listen to anything that you want to pitch under that. We have funded tours. We funded a lot of technology-type gimmicks to get sites to sort of connect technologically, things like that. And then we're now getting into we also fund capital, so we're now getting into some of the physical aspects of trying to make a site more amenable to visitors. So just real quick, we have an annual grant round we announce in January. So if anybody has a project they're thinking about, call the office. We announce in January, the applications will be due in April. We right now have just gotten done evaluating our grant round, and the announcement should be coming out at the end of the month about who's getting it. But all our money has to be signed off by the governor, so it does take a little bit longer. But if you have an idea for a project that you think would work, one of our highest criteria is linkage. So if you're thinking of a project, we like to take you off your own site, but to see how you're working with others and trying to do a larger picture of tourism, so that always ranks high. But just call the office and talk with us.
The Division of Travel and Tourism also has a couple of grant programs. One is exclusively for destination marketing organizations, but the other one we call co-op grants, and they're available for nonprofit and for-profit organizations, but they're strictly for marketing, and they're primarily for tourism opportunities. So, in people's grant applications, to the degree that you can say that we're going to be driving visitation to a specific event or a festival or a marketing program, those grants are available for anybody.
Which the county was a recipient of a Grapes and Grains grant, so thank you. So that's exactly what you're saying there. I think we have time for one more. I saw one hand over there.
They're right around us. Poconos is one. New England is one. We think of New England, that's a group of states, but we go to New England for a trip. Well, I'm going to New England. The Berkshires. Bucks County, that's a county, but Bucks County has an image. Those images take years and years, decades to build, but we certainly have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and another example, I thought you were going to go here, Tom, was Finger Lakes. It was a great opportunity to emulate. And also, people may not like this, but the Jersey Shore is an iconic brand. And what we're trying to do is, make all of the other assets, tourism assets in New Jersey, as iconic as the shore. So when people think of New Jersey, they think of the New Jersey Shore. So, how do you make that brand specific to, other parts of the, of the region? It takes time because the Jersey Shore was built on generations of people, coming, with their grandparents, and they bring their, grandchildren years later. So it takes a long time to become an iconic brand, but it can be done.
Just real quick, I tend to look at all the places that are having problems because with a historic resource, the one thing you're trying to do is to prevent those problems from happening. So I can't necessarily add to this conversation except that I do travel a lot, but I tend to see examples of places that have had a challenge and then what have they done to overcome the challenge. Because I think from our standpoint of always worrying about, are we doing the right thing for the historic resource? Are we wearing it out? Is this going to, lead to commercialization that we don't want? Because heritage tourism is all about the authentic and the authentic visitor experience. So I tend to hear the stories that are about places that have overcome a challenge and what they had to do that. So I can't give you a good example, but I could give you some other things.
Well, we're right at time, so I want to thank our panel. I think this really got it kicked off for, I think, the individual sessions that we're going to have today. So how about a round of applause for our panelists? I'd be remiss if I didn't do a tourism plug. If you are in Hackettstown, so after you leave today, there are plenty of great restaurants, breweries, please explore them. And 10 miles west, Washington Borough is having a fantastic festival today. So you're in the area, we already got you here, so please explore Warren. Thank you.
Well done. I learned.